In the meeting of the St. Mary's County Board of Education for Wednesday, December 14th, 2022. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so as required by law, the first meeting in December, we hold board elections. So I am going to turn it over to Dr. Smith with his script.
You need to make a motion.
Oh,
to
first of all, I need to
temporarily
make a motion to suspend the
and
rules in order to have Dr. Smith take over. So may I have a motion? Mary? Just roll with it. There's nothing written.
I move that we turn the meeting over to,
You read that.
all right, I move that the board temporarily suspend the rules and have the secretary treasurer preside over the meeting for the purpose of election of officers.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now, Dr. Smith.
Wow, that, Chairperson Bailey, I can feel that authority just kind of come into my body. There are many
Gavel.
things. No,
With the
right,
gavel, too.
right. That would be fine. The floor is now open for nominations for the office of Chairman of St. Mary's County Public Schools Board of Education.
I move that Karen Bailey be chairman of the Board of Education.
Ms. Karen Bailey, do you accept the nomination for chairman?
Yes, I do.
All right. I will need a roll call vote. All in favor of...
Second. Don't you need a second?
Doesn't say I need a second.
Okay.
We always keep on saying that we need a second.
We do.
You don't, because it's not a motion. It's just all in favor, and
Gotcha.
if there isn't, then there isn't a
This
majority.
is probably going to do this once a year.
If there then isn't a majority, it goes back to more nominations.
It's a nomination, not a motion.
Yes,
so.
yes. So, with that clarification, all in favor of chairperson, of Karen Bailey for the office of chairman, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations,
Thank you.
Chairman Bailey. The floor is now open for nominations for the office of vice chairman.
I nominate Kathy Allen as vice chairman.
Kathy Allen, do you accept the nomination for vice chairman?
I do.
Wonderful. All in favor of Kathy Allen for the office of vice chairman signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations. Now, I think that went really well. Is there a motion to return to the regular rules with Chairperson Bailey assuming the duties?
I move that the board resume regular operation with Karen Bailey being chairperson.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Back at you.
Done. All right. Thank you very much. Let's
bet.
see. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And we will go into the superintendent and student member of the board update.
Uh-oh, my.
Uh-oh, and our screen is dead.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this screen up here turned off. I don't know. I mean, there are other screens, so
Yeah.
that
It's all good.
it's taking a second. All right. Well, as we begin every single meeting, there are and continue to be opportunities to join St. Mary's County Public Schools. Hit the big red button, join our team. Now, the big red button, all the other times of the year is just a big red button, but now it's thematically appropriate for December. It's the Happy Holidays, join our team, big red button. We do have opportunities for instructional positions, specifically secondary English and secondary mathematics, as well as special education. So if you're interested, please visit our website, hit the button, join our team. We love mid-year graduates. And so we have been talking to all the colleges and universities and those who are completing their degree and their degree programs, certainly. If you know anybody in your family, so as you get together over the holidays, and perhaps your children are coming back into town or what have you, and they're saying, I'm not really satisfied by the work that I'm doing, direct them to the Join Our Team big red button. They'll be happy here. 'Tis the season. If you have been following us in Twitter or engaged in any one of our schools, or you have children in the system, there are a lot of things going on. We are seeing some of the early announcements for the Teachers of the Year nominees from each one of the schools, as well as Education Support Professionals of the Year for each one of the schools, and the schools themselves are then recognizing them and posting pictures. We have 3 so far that they have posted out there. The tweet from me last week, I think it was last week we went to Piney Point Elementary School as a wraparound, Manasa, to our previous, where we went out, we talked to them, and they talked about their Student Council Association, and I said, please give us an invitation and I'll come out. I didn't extend it to you because it was during the day, and you don't need to miss early morning as well as late. So I went out to Piney Point Elementary School, the Student Council Association. I was joined by Dr. Montgomery, so they got a twofer. And it was really great. They have for a 4th and 5th grade student council associate. Well, actually, all the classes are represented. Really super organized. They basically had a secretary and a parliamentarian, and they went through. They had a set agenda, and they have very specific things that they do each month oriented towards the school and community. And in December, the Giving Tree was the central part of their work, where they took a tree and they decorate it with supplies that people might need for the winter months. Really, 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 really great. Robin Gerard was in there, as well as Principal Kelly Courtney. It was just really nice. There is a great deal of warmth and charity and good times. Mad About Plaid was across really the system. If you out on Tuesday, many people did Mad About Plaid. Monica, did you do Mad About Plaid?
We did Mad About Plaid.
Mad About Plaid as well.
Indeed.
Chopticon, it was a sea of plaid yesterday while I was visiting there. It was great. We did new teacher visits. God, that's a flattering picture of me at the Chopticon High School. We did. So one of the things, working with Heather Husk and Dr. Marr and the new teacher induction system, the whole program, they have monthly meetings and we see how they're going. We then go out and visit them in their schools. Secondary schools are a lot easier because there's multiple people at one school. We consolidated all the elementary schools together at one of the elementary school sites just to see how they're going. To do a little dipstick as to how we're welcoming them into the system, if there are things that really worked well or things that we might need to tweak, and then doing a bit of forecasting into January, February, March, April, May, and what kind of professional development they would like to see. We've already got most of it laid out, and it's instructional and it's behavioral and it's calendar oriented. But if there's something specifically that they would like to do as they pull together, I will tell you that they will talk about the very challenging nature of being a first-year teacher or a teacher new to St. Mary's County. Overall, they've had very, very positive things to say about the culture, the climate, the atmosphere in all of our schools. It's been really good, and it's a testament to specifically the work that certainly Dr. Marr and Heather Husk have been doing, but then also all of the content supervisors, all of the supervisors up in special ed and supporting services, they come out and do professional development and interact with all of our new teachers. They've been really good. And the most heartwarming thing that I hear over and over again is, this isn't like for the veteran teachers who come to us from other systems. They'll say, I have felt more welcomed here than I have in other places, and it really makes me glad about the decision that I made to come here, because we can't afford to lose anybody. So every one of them is dear, and it's been great. Chopticon also, some of them were dressed in pajamas as well. That was fun too.
It was pajama day.
Yeah, it was pajama day. So there was a couple. Major Mayo, the Air Force Army JROTC commander, was in a pajama jumpsuit. Pretty interesting. It was good. She's a force of nature. She is awesome. She is awesome. But she was in pajamas yesterday. It was funny. Happy holidays. We have charged the students in the graphics arts program over at the Tech Center to do themed backdrops for our fairly simple logo and then kind of instill them. This was done by Taylor Wazakinski, and Taylor's probably, the Wazakinski name may be familiar to us because Heather is our supervisor of media science, and Joe Wazakinski is an assistant principal over at Chaptacon High School. They have fantastic children and obviously quite talented. This was her adaptation for the holidays, and they're all included in there. It's absolutely lovely. We've been sending it out on correspondence. December, we are very, very close. We'll call today in the bag. Let's just call it done. I feel like this is pretty good. I think we can just say all good, good to go. Don't send any emails. Let's just. It only leaves us Thursday and Friday. There are a lot of really fun things happening in our schools Thursday and Friday. Specifically, I know at Chaptacon they're going to have the faculty staff basketball game, 7th and 8th period. I did tell Principal Perner he cannot injure himself or anyone else. Because
You don't really have to watch for Principal Perner. You have to watch out for the football coach.
Well,
right?
Principal Perner did break somebody's leg a couple of
That
years
is
ago.
true.
So he's a gentle man. It's not, but I guess, and I've seen people break their, Mike Egan 25 years ago, I mean, his foot went the wrong way. It turns out that perhaps older people really shouldn't be playing sports with younger people, but that's neither here nor there. So there's a lot of really fun things that are going to happen in the next 2 days. Please, everybody, bring the best versions of themselves. Have that holiday joy, because we then start in earnest our break, and we really are going to shut down the system to the outside for the next 2 weeks, 17 days. That does not mean, as Chairperson Bailey emphasized before, that there is not an incredible amount of work going on in our buildings. Our 12-month employees, this is when we do a great deal of catch-up with all of our supporting services, and when we do maintenance and operations, as well as we are hosting still basketball games and tournaments and things like that that are going on. So we will stay busy, but for the public and our students, and this is a great time to spend with your loved ones, and so we strongly encourage that. That will then roll us into January, as I would like to call it, Budget Palooza. Really, we reopen on the 3rd, and then we are going to have a meeting each week where we're either having a formal board meeting with a budget work session or just a straight budget work session and a public hearing in the month of January. We do have an early dismissal on the 27th, and we have no school on the 16th, Martin Luther King Day. Our second marking period concludes on the 26th. And the reason why it's just January budget is because we have to send a budget to the county commissioners by the first week of February, according to the calendar. And it's really hard to do this year because we have no idea where we are with anticipated revenue. The state usually gives us some inkling of where we're going to be with funding. By now, they don't formalize it until January, but by now we usually have some feeling of understanding of where the state dollars are going to be. And usually by now, the county commissioners have presented publicly their revenue and expenditures for last year, and then their anticipated revenues for the upcoming 2024 fiscal year. So we have some idea of where we are operating within available funds, and then we kind of tailor our budget to what's available. We always try to only ask for and build a budget that's sustainable. That's one of our last S's, right? The big S, sustainability. We're a little blind right now. So we're gonna present today on the blueprint and where we are, and we're gonna present today on the things that are driving the 2024 budget, but we're not going to present all of the specifics until we gather back in 2023, so until we come back together. So that Wednesday Board of Ed budget work session is when we're going to, in earnest, present the whole tome of what the budget looks like for 2024. We still won't have a great deal of information about where we sit with the state or with locals, but obviously we're gonna have to start doing this work. So that's where we are. With that, we've got one school left.
Yes.
We've got Benjamin Banneker Elementary School. We're going to be visiting there this afternoon, and at that point we will have completed our conversations with fifth graders across the entire county. We just couldn't fit it in before today, so we don't have that, but we do have you.
Yeah. So, good morning. My first point was that we are visiting our last of 19 elementary schools today, and I'm very, very excited for that. My goal was to get it done by the end of December. So.
You very clearly made your goal my goal.
I did.
So we have that great shared goal.
But yeah, so I'm very excited to be completing that goal today. And even though we've kind of, finished our conversations with fifth graders, that does not mean we have finished our communication with fifth graders. As you saw, Dr. Smith went out to Piney Point, and I actually received an email from a student from Dinard yesterday. And it was very, very kind. And yeah, so that just shows that, it's kind of making an impact, and that's what I wanted. So I'm very, very happy about that. And after we finish our elementary school visits today, we're going to move on to middle school and then high school. And yeah, that'll be a lot quicker because we don't have 19 of those. But yeah, I'm very, very excited to finish that out. And then kind of differently than what I usually talk about, because I usually talk about our elementary school visits, and I don't have any today. I just wanted to touch on kind of the older kid stuff I'm doing at the moment. So I am a member of the St. Mary's Association of Student Council's Executive Board because I am the student member of the board. And so we're currently preparing for our next General Assembly meeting, which takes place 4 times during this school year. And the next one is going to be held on January 12th, and we have members come from all of our, as many as we can, as many of our high schools and middle schools, and this actually includes private schools as well. So it's just kind of the student body, secondary student body in St. Mary's County, and it's a really great opportunity for student leaders to represent the student voices at their respective schools. And we do workshops. We learn about leadership and life skills. Sometimes the workshops will just be like setting goals for yourself, and we'll kind of learn about that, and it's really, really fun. And yeah, student government or council, depending on what school you go to, is a super important part of how our secondary schools run, because they provide student input and insight into the decisions we make, the activities we do, and students are the biggest stakeholders in our education, so it's really awesome to see how much students are participating in those kinds of things. It was a little hard during the pandemic, but we've gotten a lot of student governments back up and running, and so that's really awesome. And kind of, as you can see, that was the SMASC logo. And then if you move up, I am also a member of the Maryland Association of Student Council's Executive Board, because I am SMOB. So our last executive board meeting was actually this past Saturday, December 10th, and it was really awesome. We decided a location for some of our upcoming huge statewide events, and MASC has been a really, really awesome environment where you can meet student leaders from environments that aren't yours. So I come from St. Mary's County, right? I come from SMCPS, but I'm meeting students from all sides of the county, people who live 4 hours away from us, and I get to talk to them, talk about our experiences. We learn a lot, and it's been a really collaborative and productive environment this year. And it's full of students who want to make a difference, so it's really awesome. So although we have different experiences, we all have similar goals, and that's really, really awesome. And in November, I got to present a workshop at MASC's Fall Leadership Conference with my fellow SMASC member and close friend, Jordan Walters. We presented a workshop called Women in STEM, Breaking the Glass Ceiling, so that was pretty cool. It was really awesome. I met a lot of students in student government who are pursuing STEM careers, such as myself. So I'm very excited about, all the student leaders that are, graduating high school soon and will, I'm sure, be a force of nature, out in the workforce. I'm very excited for that. And I've also met a lot of student members of the board across the state as well, through MASC. So I just wanted to highlight that because I've never really talked about it. And so another thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was the St. Mary's Association of Model United Nations. So this is a county conference that will be held on February 10th and 11th of 2023. And the students putting this together have worked and are continuing to work tirelessly to make sure everything runs smoothly. And I can speak from personal experience that this opportunity to simulate real-world issues, it allows discussion and growth that's really, really unique. It's different than in any other environment, and it's super fun. So that's a plus side. So if you're a student and you're saying, what should I do in January? It's after winter break. You should do this. It's super fun, and you get to learn a lot. So, and then the last thing, I promise it's the last thing. I just wanted to say that SMOB applications are open.
Yep.
So if you are a rising 11th or 12th grade student in SMCPS, you are eligible to run for student member of the Board of Education. So I'm here right now. I won't be here forever. I will be graduating. So if you want to replace me and get to have the honor of representing over 17,000 student voices in St. Mary's County, please apply to run for SMOB. And on the slide, you can see I kind of, made little snippets. So you go to smcps.org, you go to students and families, you scroll down to extracurricular activities, and there'll be a little thing that says St. Mary's Association of Student Councils. Click on that. It'll bring you to our website, and then under documents and applications, you can apply to be student member of the Board of Education. And so, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. It's a phenomenal learning experience, and it's a unique opportunity. Really, really, really unique. Only one student gets to do it every year. So, do you want to be that student? Be that student. Okay, lastly, I just wanted to say thank you to all the students of SMCPS for continuing to work hard. I've definitely said it once. I've definitely already said it multiple times, but I will say it a million times. I'm very, very incredibly proud of all of the students of SMCPS, whether you're in pre-K learning how to read or in 12th grade figuring out your future. I wish you all the best, and I hope you have a restful, much-deserved winter break. And also thank you to all of our teachers, staff, administration, supervisors, all the adults who are here too, because we couldn't be here without your support. So yeah, thank you, SMCPS.
May they also have a restful break.
Yes, indeed.
Well deserved.
Indeed, well deserved.
So if applicants have questions, can they email you?
Yes, they
about
can.
the position?
You can
I
email
had that
me.
question last night
Oh,
from
really?
someone at Chopticon. Yes.
Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
Okay, if you want to apply for SMOB, you can email me at meswara@smcps.org, or you can DM me on Instagram. It's smcps.smob. It's pretty easy to find, promise. So yeah.
Instagram.
Let me know.
Not Twitter.
No.
I think we're moving away. Who knows?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't check Twitter. I'm so sorry.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. No Facebook, no Twitter.
No
Fine.
Facebook, no Twitter.
Fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
She's yelling.
Wonderful. And with that, so we conclude.
Anything else?
Nope.
No final thoughts?
No.
Okay. All right.
Leave that open to me.
Wait, if you're going to, have a holiday poem. Do we
No,
have
I
any
don't.
public comment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda today. It consists of the approval of minutes for November 30th, 2022. Personnel teachers. There are no administrative and supervisory positions that are being filled here. Department of Food and Nutrition Services, purchase of commercial kitchen equipment, school bus contract updates for the 2022-23 school year, and Department of Maintenance, chiller and rooftop AC units, preventive maintenance and repairs. So I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We will begin with the action items. First up, we have Ms. Howe with our CIP
Good morning.
plan.
Good morning.
Find the mouse and we're good. There we go. So this is the third step in the process for us for the CIP process. The first process starts back in the summer when we approved the Educational Facilities Master Plan, which is the guiding principle of our plan. And then in September, the Board of Education approved the state CIP projects on September 14th, and the commissioners approved the same state CIP projects in September on the 27th. Those then have to be sent to the state by the 1st of October. So those are just our state eligible projects. At the time we present that, we give the forecast for our local CIP projects that are also included in the summary list you received, but you don't actually take action on the local projects until this month. What we look at when we look at that is we look at the 5 years for the preceding 5 years. So last year when the commissioners approved their budget, they approved FY23 through 28. When we look at this year's and we talk about the analysis, we drop 23 and we add 29. So we can compare years 24 through 28 to the approved CIP. We'll talk about that as we go forward. So we did add the FY29 projects. We did look at our budget increases to reflect current pricing, and we will continue to monitor that as we've talked about, and I know others in the Division of Supporting Services have talked about the prices are volatile and they continue to change depending on the type of product that we could be looking at. It could be 18 months to 36 months before we receive things, and that's reflected in the pricing. So we did take a really good look at those local projects at the same time we did the state, and the prices are reflective of that. Our projects have to be consistent with what was submitted in September. We can make some changes if, over the course of the preceding 2 months leading up to this, if there was something that really came up, we could add to the local CIP. This year we have kept the projects the same with the same budgets that you saw in September. Local CIP is due to the commissioners on January 2nd. And as we've talked about, and I'm not going to go in depth because we've talked a lot about them, but we do have projects that are in here that won't be bid from 6 to 18 months from now. So forecasting those budgets has been a challenge. We really work with our engineering team and we look at our current cost to try and get them as accurate as possible. We do have to think about projects from the state that receive partial or no funding and how we're going to proceed with those. We did present our appeal for our 75% recommendation to the IAC, and they have approved us moving forward. Lady Marshall Dent is fully funded at the completion of the budget cycle. At 75% it is not, but their forecast for 100% would be to fully fund that project. And then we did appeal for some additional funding on Great Mills High School, but they did only look at 2 projects. They're fully aware of our need. We put in for $15.8 million in state funding requests for this year, and right now we're sitting at a little over $5 million recommendation. Costs are going to continue to increase. We're going to have the availability of products and services. Funding levels of the state may change in future fiscal years. We may have new legislation for energy conservation that we will have to address in future years. And then we will need to continue to look at the state facilities assessment and the maintenance inspections as we move forward. So this is the current list of summary of CIP projects. This is the local funding side. And as I was saying in the beginning, we can compare FY24 to FY28 to the approved budget of last year because these projects were included in that budget. And as we talked about in September, with the cost escalation of the projects, we're almost 32. We're 31.8 million over where we were last year. And the blue column adds the next fiscal year, which would be FY29, which is an additional almost 7 million, adding that 6th year. We did have a work session with the commissioners. They're aware of the cost increases. They're seeing the same kind of increase on their side as well. So we have had at least one work session to just start discussing these projects. The next slide is the same projects, but showing the state portion, comparing FY24 to 28 from last year's approved. It's 31.7 million and 6 million in new projects. One of the things we're really trying to do, and I stress this to the commissioners, and I've had discussions with the IAC staff, is we really want to get the projects we've identified in 24 completed before we get to the Chapticon project. That way we have these done and we can focus solely on funding the Chapticon project. So both the IAC and the commissioners have indicated their willingness to work with us on meeting those needs. The prior chart it collapsed down so that we could get that on one. We do have locally critical projects. They're in the category of infrastructure critical. The types of projects that we do within that are made to maintain our infrastructure and to advance the life cycle of some of the major components, such as our HVAC system, so that we can spread projects out. We have chillers, control panels, HVAC controls, electrical upgrades, fields and grounds, fuel tank replacements, generator replacements. There's quite a few of those. Lift stations, we do have the mercury floor abatement study at 3 schools. A roof, a small roof, rooftop unit replacements, scoreboard replacements, well pump replacements, and water heaters. All of the information on the two, the critical and the programmatic, are all located within the comprehensive maintenance plan as well. So what you're going to see is you're going to take the master plan and the comprehensive maintenance plan, and you're going to put these together that are going to result in either a state or a local CIP project. In the programmatic category, these are ones that have more of a continual life cycle. The critical is more specific to a particular unit that we need. Within the programmatic categories, you're going to find exterior caulking and repointing, fire alarms, flooring. We do have the green roof replacement at Evergreen, locker room, a lot of paving and playgrounds and skylights and tile. So these are the things that are just going to have a continual every year. We need to start replacing those components. So the next steps would be, if approved today, we would submit the detail sheets to the commissioners on January 2nd, and then we begin another series of work sessions with them. They did have the first one in December, and very much like the state CIP, they'll have continual work sessions, budget hearings, and final approval would come in May of 2023. We would also go back and revisit any changes we need to make as a result of the recommendations from the state on their allocations, which gets approved after the General Assembly closes. So I can answer any questions you have, but our recommendation would be for the Board of Education to approve the local CIP for submission.
On the projects, the Fairlead Academy, the FLA, which building is that? I mean, that's the one down on Great Mills Road, or it's not the trailer?
No, it's the one on Great Mills.
Okay, all right. I just want to be clear on which one that was. Monica, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Jim?
Enrollment's been down.
Mhm.
COVID. Is that affecting at all your projections on alterations, renovations, and new construction down the road?
So enrollment has started to rebound from COVID. It's not at the same pace it was prior to COVID, but we are starting to see new students. We are projecting next year, I've already presented those to Dr. Smith, very consistent with where we are this year, for close to 100 new students next year. In the plans that we have, we're dealing with infrastructure improvements to roof and HVACs. We don't have any new capacity in our plans right now. The enrollment projections don't substantiate that at this time. So really, enrollment would not reflect where we need to be, because it really is an infrastructure problem of maintaining healthy school environments for our students and maintaining our systems so that they continue to serve us well. Moving forward, we've had a lot of discussions about developments that are coming, and that may change as we go forward. We'll really have to see if the new developments that are being approved generate new students for us, or they're just migration within the county. But right now, there's no new capacity, and no change would be needed to be made.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Dorothy, do you have any questions?
None at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mary?
No question. Thank you.
Kathy?
So on the sort of following up on what Karen asked, so in one place you have roof, virtual academy, and then rooftop unit replacement, Fairlead Academy. So, I mean, those are both, you're referring to the same building, correct? Okay. That was my only question.
Okay. All right. With that, may I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the fiscal year 2024, fiscal year 2029 local capital improvements program for the submission to the Commissioners of St. Mary's County.
May I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you, Ms. Ho.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Wyant.
Yes, good morning.
How are you?
Down, lower, lower. There you go.
Okay. This will have more information on it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. This is a school safety grant. It's basically an annual appropriation now from the Maryland Center for School Safety. This was formerly overseen by the Interagency on Schools Construction. Beginning last year, they migrated this funding to the Maryland Center for School Safety. So we applied for a grant that was created by House Bill 1783. intended to improve safety and security for students in Maryland Public Schools. The grant allows for school security improvements, secure lockable classrooms, each classroom in schools, areas of safe refuge in each classroom, and surveillance and other security technology school monitoring purposes. The grant that we submitted and the award that we received was for $196,761, and we received that on October 18th, 2022. The grant period begins July 1, 2022, ends December 29, 2023. The grant, our grant will fund the following security enhancements: security vestibule stations at Dynard and Oakville Elementary School, consistent with our strategic plan, our ongoing strategic plan; door locks and access control at Margaret Brent Middle and Hollywood Elementary School; and enhanced cellular amplification at the James A. Forrest Center, Chaptacon, Leonardtown, and Great Mills High School. Just a little side note on that critical need that we have identified from our reunification testing and drills. These are the centers that we're likely going to use if there is a critical incident, and the infrastructure for the Wi-Fi and the networks is not sufficient to support 4,000 or 5,000 people using their cell phones on campus. So we're moving forward with that. We've been working with many vendors on that. So increase the FY 2023 restricted fund budget, the revenue budget state increase of $196,761, and the expenditure budget for category 10 will increase to $196,761. So requesting that we receive your approval to accept the grant award.
Monica?
I don't remember because I have visited all of these places now, but are those the last two elementary schools without security vestibules?
No, we still have a few more to go, but we continue to move forward with our plan. So, yeah.
Awesome. And then I just wanted to say thank you because I know that I actually have some friends who are like student participants in the Maryland Center for School Safety, and it's really important to our students that they have a safe learning environment because you can't do anything in a not safe environment. So thank you for all your work.
You're welcome.
Jim?
I don't have a direct question, but I'm just curious about increasing SROs in schools. Do you see more budget money coming our way?
That would be a great question for the commissioners of St. Mary's County or the Sheriff's Department, since SROs are under their budget authority.
Yeah. We continue with our plan, yes, sir. And I'm hoping that we will have a wonderful presentation by Dr. Smith and Sheriff Hall upcoming after the first of the year to talk about our plans for expansion. So.
Yep. Lockstep.
We can put that on we have a joint meeting, it wasn't on Scott's calendar,
Yeah.
with the county commissioners in January, so we will put that on the agenda when we meet with Mr. Weisskopf.
Yep.
Thank you.
So. So I know that the commissioners that they're trying to put another cellular tower somewhere around Leonardtown High School, so this will be in conjunction. So this is separate from that, number one, just so everyone's clear.
Absolutely.
And it's just our internal networking in.
That is correct.
Okay.
And we've coordinated, it's a great question, we've actually coordinated, there's a couple of the major network providers, for example, Verizon has a response unit called Frontline.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had them out earlier this year with the Sheriff's Office and the 911 Center. They're able to bring tractor trailers in and redirect service from those. They can seize and control the service for those towers. They had that in place at Uvalde, Texas, post-incident, so.
It is amazing just traveling around to different sporting events, once you get into the high school, how dead everything is, right? I mean, Leonardtown,
The way we
our
like
schools,
it.
by far is the worst. But even
Yes.
in Calvert and Charles,
Yep.
you know, it's just a complete, you just drop to nothing.
They're massive cinder block buildings.
Right, exactly.
That is the challenge, the nature of construction for schools.
Yeah.
Right. So, Mary?
I want to thank you for all you've done for the school system. I remember when you were almost like a one-man operation, and now you have grown tremendously. I appreciate all the partnerships that you have in the county and the state to help keep our students, faculty, staff, community safe. You're doing a fantastic job. And it is, like our student board member said, it's difficult to learn if you don't feel that you're safe. And I know you and your department are doing everything they can to learn from other systems around the state and around the country and around the world to keep us even safer. So I appreciate all that you do and will continue to do for the school system.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. Thank you.
And I thank you for your very active efforts in seeking out every grant opportunity that you can find to help us accomplish all of these tasks. It is not often easy. Some of those grants are, I won't say hidden, but not readily apparent, and they can be rather cumbersome in trying to get them filled out and turned around in the amount of time that's generally allotted for it. So kudos to you and all your staff for making that happen.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, may I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve an acceptance of this grant and applicable budget in the amount of $196,761 and submittal of this budget increase to the Commissioners of St. Mary's County for their approval.
Have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Ms.
Thank
Moore.
you.
All right, Ms. McCord, we have a budget amendment. We should have our Christmas logo up there.
Yes,
That's right. Whoops.
the Christmas logo.
Dr. Marr, we should have had the Christmas logo up.
And the
We
holiday
should have,
spirit.
we will make a mental note of that, and that will be something that we build in.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we have before you an FY23 unrestricted and CIP budget amendment. Presented by the auditors in October were the FY22 budgetary savings, which reflected $3.7 million of budgetary savings. And as you can see, the majority of those savings were in the areas of instructional salaries of $1.5 million and associated fixed charges of $977,000. We are proposing a use of that fund balance. We anticipated a significant portion of that $3.7 million budgetary savings as we were projecting out and projecting out FY22 year end and then developing the FY23 budget. So we incorporated $2 million of that already in your adopted budget. So the differential of $1.7 million of that $3.7 million, we're requesting a use of that fund balance to support the Great Mills High School press box for $250,000. We are requesting a state bond match of $100,000, playgrounds of $220,000. This would be going to support Green Holly, Greenview Knolls, and Letty Marshall Dent, as well as $575,000 for Chopticon High School gym floor and bleachers, $595,000 for our technology refresh, and this is for the 6th and 9th grade technology refreshes of laptops. Greenview Knolls fire tank supply replacement of $24,000 and a portable air chiller for $60,000. As a result of the aging equipment with our chillers and the need as a result of the pandemic to have the chillers going at high volume, we've noticed an increased maintenance cost, and therefore we've had significant cost of rentals with the chillers recently. So what that looks like on the accounting side is a planned use of fund balance of $1.7 million. On the expenditure side, a capital outlay CIP transfer of $1,045,000. Maintained within the operating budget, an increase of the maintenance category of $84,000. And materials of instruction for those laptop refreshes of $595,000. And then on the CIP side, a $1,045,000 increase. Are there any questions?
Monica?
Before we start, go back to the first slide, if you could. Okay. We had a $238 million budget, actual budget last year. We ended up with $3.7 million fund balance, so less than 2% revenues to expenditures. We were able to forecast in advance that we were going to see fund balance accrual. And so we proactively took $2 million and built it in the next year's budget. So really, moving into this year, we have a $248 million budget with about $1.7 million unallocated within fund balance. We are not going to let $1.7 million sit on our books. That money was allocated to the school system for the school system and students. And so that's why we're coming before you to put it into action. We firmly believe that it is not our role to hold money. It is our role to build a budget, execute a budget that is absolutely aligned to revenues and expenditures. That's where you get a 98-point-something%, utilization of funds, and then turn around and use it. This is really important in that we are using now fund balance for CIP projects. Because we need to get things done, and we need to keep money moving.
And just as a reminder, we only want to use fund balance for non-recurring items, never to support the recurring costs of the operating budget, such as salaries.
Tammy says I can't do that. So Tammy says
I think the law says
fund
you can.
balance can. No, there is nothing that says you can't. You can use one-time funds for recurring costs. It's a bad idea, but we can't. We don't here. So it's
We do not.
Fund balance is one time. These are all one-time expenses, and may Chopticon have their floor in their gym fixed for good.
That's right.
Yes, that's a goal we all
We do
have.
not have to have Mr. Sapp sit on the chair
We
during the
do
bar and put the floor down, right?
Yeah.
During senior night.
Yes, we want to avoid that
We'd like to avoid
recurring.
that.
We want to avoid that recurring.
And of course, after you approve this, this will go across the street to the county commissioners for their support and approval as well.
Okay, thank you. Monica, do you have any questions?
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was actually just going to say I do not have any questions. Thank you, Ms. McCourt.
See, Jim could read your mind.
Just a definition, you're talking about technology refresh. Would that be like software upgrades
No,
and things like
it's-
that?
These are
It's
laptops for
laptops.
6th and 9th graders.
Oh, okay.
What
So
we
that
f-
is a specific.
Yeah, so what we find is that we assign these laptops to kids and they use them year over year. So when they transition from elementary to high school, that's where we see that some of those laptops don't make it. And some of those that do probably shouldn't. So that's why we're going to replace 6th grade and then 9th grade, because the same thing happens. They faithfully use them 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then when we transition up into high school, oftentimes it's time
The
to
key's
replace.
stick.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. We are getting very good use in life out of laptops purchased at a pretty competitive price point. I have to say, the students of St. Mary's County are pretty diligent with the using of technology as far as the rate at which we need to replace. So
You might want to consider laptops for the board members too. I got an ancient laptop. I can't get anything to boot up. Oh, what's this mean?
He's looking for more money from me.
Remember, Davis, you know a guy. We'll get something worked out. We'll get something. We can get that one worked out.
I got one ready for you guys.
Yeah, there you go.
Fine.
Yep.
Dorothy, do you have any questions?
That's
That
it.
was my question. You got it answered.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think these are worthy projects. And I want to say something about Dr. Marr. You guys go easy on Dr. Marr. Every time there's a technology glitch, he can get up there lickety-split and he takes
We appreciate
care
that.
of it. He's 99.9%. Would you agree, Dr.
Oh
Smith?
my gosh, yeah.
And he can't be 100%
Right.
because then you know who he would be if he were 100%.
Well, there isn't.
But
There
he is,
isn't.
that's right, not here, down here. But anyway.
I just felt bad for poor Mr. Wysokinski, who had his artwork selected and then
Yeah, we should have done.
It was shown.
That's Taylor.
It has
That's
been
she.
shown.
Exactly.
It
Yes.
has been shown.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yes.
joking.
Yeah.
Got into
No, I mean, if not for Dr. Marr and
Yesterday.
Dave Howard over there, you have some lead technology breaker right here. So as always, other duties is assigned for both of them is bolded and highlighted. So thank
Oh, yeah.
you.
Okay, good.
Kathy, do you have anything?
My tech support, what would Google tell me to do?
Don't listen to Google. Although Google's listening to you.
Yes, it is. Anyway, no, I don't have any questions. Thank you very much.
Okay. And yes, I am very happy, Scott, to see the high school gym floor and bleachers, so I will not have people sending me pictures of the buckled floor, hopefully in August and September anymore.
Yes, and for those not listening at home, I mean, we have perennially had the gym floor, which has been maintained appropriately and replaced, but we have had it buckling due to moisture and nature and all those other things, and this shall resolve the issue. Or we're gonna just tear down the building and build a new one.
Famous last words.
Right, yes, go ahead.
Will these be summer projects that when they get done?
Dr. Jaffers?
Yeah. Yes.
They performed in,
So the press box will have to go through the state bonding authority, so we won't
Right.
get that $100,000 until the legislature meets and does that sometime at the end of February.
Right.
So that'll be probably extended, and then I will leave the rest to Dr. Jaffers, right?
Well, some of the availability, because the people are using the gym floor for curriculum and for athletics, so it's going to be when there's, nobody in the gym. So those will be in the summer, but I think we can, according to Ms. McCord, I think we can use the money as soon as the commissioners across the street approve that these projects are worthy and the budget is,
Right, 'cause some of them we
transfers
just-
okay.
Right, some of them we just wanna get in the queue, like,
Yep.
for the Dell computers, as, different price points come up. The playgrounds, we wanna get the equipment ordered, so then they will be ready to start once, the facilities are not being used by the students or the schools, so.
And I believe the portable chiller, you're having a hard time locating the one you want, right?
Yeah, there's the specs of the chiller. Some of them are too small, some of them are too big, so we have to find the right one. So we're working with Dr. Beavers in the back. He's trying to run down an appropriate portable air chiller. So yes.
Yeah. Goldilocks.
I was gonna say that. Yeah.
Mine's, yes.
Yeah.
And they have to take a holiday road trip in a box truck to go pick up a chiller somewhere in Kansas, we'll know.
We've done things like that in the system where we've taken box trucks to go get materials and instruction and there's.
I
If
think the
it's-
Not
county
outside
has a
the bounds
history
of
of that. Like
responsibility.
Dr. Brewster does.
Dr. Brewster, we both drove box trucks up to get face masks and all the, whatever needs to be done, we do it.
Okay, do I have any more questions? Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the presented increase in the budget for FY 2023 and approve submittal of this budget amendment to the Commissioners of St. Mary's County for their approval as required by the Annotated Code of Maryland.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. So that completes our action items. Ms. McCourt, we have our November financials.
Before you is the revenue report. As of the end of November, we have received $127.3 million, representing 50% of our revenues. So a little ahead of target for the end of November. On the expenditure side, we have encumbrances outstanding of $153.2 million, total year-to-date encumbrances and expenses of $227.5 million, representing an available balance of $25.1 million. So 90% of our budget has been committed, and there are no areas of concern noted at this time. But of course, we are continuing to monitor, as historically done, the non-public placements for special education. Those costs are beginning to creep up, as well as certainly fuel costs. Are there any questions?
Anyone? Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Schrader.
to take a little time this morning to present to you guys on mental health and suicide prevention in our system. As you know, across our county, across our state, and across the U.S. in general, we're seeing a rise in numbers of concern for mental health. So we thought it would be appropriate to kind of share what we're doing here and what our system is looking like. This is just an overview of some of our mental health and wellness data. On the left-hand side, you'll see a graph that represents our risk assessments completed by SMCPS staff over the course of time since 2016-17. You can see in 2021 when we, that was the year right after COVID started, and so we had a significant decrease in in-person attendance, so we obviously didn't do as many during that year. But you can see when students returned full-time, we had a sharp rise in the number of risk assessments that we are conducting. This year, we are also concerned about the number of assessments that we're doing, and just that rate seems to be on par with last year, if not more. It's a positive in a sense because we are catching students, we are intervening with students, and we are getting students to help when they need it. On the right-hand side, you'll see a graph about threat assessment. So that is talking about threats of harm to others. So we investigate those through our protocols. Last year, you can see our 21-22 data, where we had about 134 total threat assessments. This year, we have conducted 88. Continuing with our data regarding emergency petitions. So this is not SMCPS data alone. Emergency petitions, those numbers come directly from the Sheriff's Department, and they are for students, youth, under 18 in our entire county, so they're not just SMCPS students. But as you can see, in the 21-22 school year, we had 189 estimated emergency petitions, and this year we have had 67. On the right-hand side, you'll see our Gaggle reports, which is our software safety system for students. And as you can see, the numbers for last year in the gray and this year in the red. We break that down in those Gaggle reports by the type of reports that we receive. So we have reports that mention suicide, mention self-harm, mention violence to others, mention drug use, or mention some type of harassment. And then we investigate those reports, and again, we assist students in getting the help that they need. Another area that we're seeing an increase in, again, not just in SMCPS, also in our county and in our state and across the United States, is we're seeing an increase in our Child Protective Service reports. School-based employees are mandated reporters, so any suspicion of abuse we do have to report. You can see those numbers as well have also risen post-COVID. Bullying reports. Last year, we had a total of 29 bullying reports, and this year, for the 22-23 school year, we have had 40 as of the middle of November. I do want to add, though, that this year there has been some changes at the state level regarding the policy and how we make available to our parents and to our students the availability to report, making it easier for them. So we have instituted an online electronic format. So I'm glad to see that we're actually getting more numbers. I expected to see more numbers in that area because it enables students and families to have better access to reporting things of concern. So with all those numbers, what are we doing? What are we doing as a school system to try to help and support our students and our families? Our mental health supports within the school system function on a multi-tiered system of support. So you have at the bottom tier 1, that's all students. What are they getting at that lower level for everyone? We provide social emotional learning instruction in the classroom. We provide, some schools are positive behavior intervention or PBIS schools. We have a multi-tiered system of support for academics and behavior across the board. We institute conscious discipline approaches. We have general counseling through our school counselors, instructional support, etc. In our tier 2, which is that midsection, a little bit higher need of support, We have groups, so some of our school counselors and our school psychs and some of our school social workers engage with students in a group format. So they provide groups on topics like conflict management, coping skills, trauma, other things that come up to the forefront as a need for students. They'll pop in and throw a group together to help support those students together. And then our tier 3, which is our most critical need, is that need for one-on-one counseling support in the school environment. So we have our IEP special education students, our LAP students, which is our learning adjustment program within the special education department. They receive through their IEP. Some of our 504 students receive ongoing counseling support. And then we have a program through our social work team that is available to all students across the board in schools where we do have social workers present, an ongoing counseling program that is referral based. And again, that is a one-on-one high level of support needed. In addition to our multi-tiered system of support, we are trying to educate and help make resources more available to our students, our staff, and our families. So a few years ago, when COVID started, we instituted a one-stop shop for those groups. And we wanted to put in a Google website where all those resources can be found for students and families across the board. So we have Google sites for elementary students, secondary students, parents, and staff. Those are updated every single month. We focus on a mental health topic of the month. For the holiday season, we've been focusing on mindfulness as just an example on how to reduce stress, how to be in the moment, how to try to make sense of all the craziness going on around you, and take care of yourself. That's a big, important factor as we head into the holidays. So when you have some time, take a look at those websites. We provide a lot of information there for everyone. And then our third and final area is our evening counseling program. I mentioned earlier the need in our community and in our state for mental health needs that are rising. One of the problems we are seeing is the availability of mental health supports within our community. We have a lot of wonderful providers in our community. They're overwhelmed. The average wait time currently is 4 to 9 months to get in to see an outpatient provider, which is a very long time for a student who's struggling. So thankfully, we have an evening counseling program. It is an after-hours program that our current staff volunteer to do, and they provide, it's a 6-week program, so it's not super long-term, but it is sort of that bridge, trying to bridge the gap between getting a student seen for what's going on and helping connect them with outpatient resources while they wait on waiting lists, because the majority of our kids are there. Currently, we have just under 100 students on that list. We are adding a couple of providers starting in January to that. We currently have 2 providers there at Greenview Knolls Elementary School on Monday evenings from 4 to 7. And starting in January, we are adding a 3rd person to that location, and then we are opening a northern location for our families in the north, and that will be at Margaret Brent Middle School, and we will have 2 providers there on Wednesdays starting the 2nd week in January to help support our students. I wanted to take a little bit of time to take a look at our social work team data. So we started in 2019-20. We participated in a grant, and we were awarded a grant to be able to fund 8 school social workers in our county, and we've been able to expand that through the addition of a 2nd grant. And so now we have a total of 12 providers serving 16 schools across the county. 8 elementary schools, and then the rest are secondary schools. And I just want to take a moment to reflect the data. It also shows that need increasing over time. But at the same time, that needs, we are 100% filling that void, I feel. And I feel that we are intervening with students. We are trying to support students as much as we possibly can. They are being served in our 12-week program, which is that ongoing counseling support program that I mentioned earlier, that one-on-one, where a student is given an individual
plan based on what they want to work on, what they need to work on for their mental health, to give them the skills to help them. We also have our crisis support work, which is students in crisis during the day, during the school day. They're having difficulty and they need to see someone right away. You can see those numbers have skyrocketed over time. Last year, culminating in 1,645 student sessions for that. And then our aftercare is where, when students are referred to the emergency department for a mental health crisis or are admitted into a hospitalization for crisis management of mental health, we offer an aftercare support services to those students. We reach out to families when we know that they've been hospitalized. We offer them kind of a reentry meeting, but it really is about developing a proactive plan to help support that student as they transition back to school and ensuring that they're connected with community-based resources as well as the school-based resources that they need. So just wanted to take a little bit of time to reflect that. So what do they do in that 12-week program? So we take a look at these 7 areas: symptoms of depression, symptoms of self-esteem, symptoms, coping skills, conflict management, symptoms of anxiety, their connection to school, and their substance use. And this is the overall result over time since that first year that we started seeing social workers in our schools. They've reduced self-reported symptoms of depression by 74% in those students who have taken that 12-week program. They've increased their self-esteem by 53%. Their coping skills have increased by 57%. Conflict management skills have increased by 15%. Symptoms of anxiety have been reduced by 56% in students participating. We've increased connection to school after and during a pandemic by 27%, and we have decreased substance use by 5%. So I think the program is helping. The other approach that we wanted to talk about was, in our community, what are we doing in our schools to help with suicide prevention? We have taken steps to ensure that all of our mental health staff have adequate training in how to conduct risk assessments when dealing with a student who potentially is suicidal. So we have given them all, QPRT is the name of the program. It doesn't stand for anything, it's just the name of the program. All mental health staff have had that training to date. All new staff are currently getting that training as well, if they were hired after that initial date. In addition to that, all SMCPS staff, from our bus drivers to our building service workers to our administrators to our teachers to our paraeducators, have been given the opportunity to take our Gatekeeper QPR course, which is just being able to recognize when an individual is potentially having a mental health issue, how to approach that individual, how to engage that individual, and how to get that individual to the support that they need. Having that awareness is key to safety. In addition to that, we have worked on our student plan, because students are the most critical piece to that. And we, in collaboration with our Safety and Security Office and the Maryland Center for, actually it's not, it's the, I forgot the name of it now. Anyway, the crisis folks, we wrote a grant with Safety and Security and secured some funding to implement suicide prevention at the elementary level. Gizmo's Guide to Possum Mental Health is really about mental health and wellness because they're littles. That is available on our Google site if anyone wants to take a look at that. If you go to the elementary student site, it's right there available online. It's kind of a neat way to help students take care of their mental health just like they take care of their physical health. In the middle school, we will be implementing Signs of Suicide, which is an evidence-based curriculum. We have always done suicide prevention in our schools. We want to just beef that up with more evidence-based practices, and we'll be doing that at our middle and high schools soon. And lastly, I feel it's important that as a board and as our community, we know where to go for help if we need it. So this is just a slide about available resources within our community. If someone is in need of help, we ask that you reach out to the available resources. And I do want to point out the Navigating Through Youth Mental Health and Suicide Prevention. That links you to a guide that was developed in collaboration with numerous community partners through the Violent Injury and Trauma team. We created that as a way to help support our parents and our families when dealing with mental health concerns. Oops. Don't want to go there.
It's frozen.
Sorry, I got it. Any questions or comments?
Awesome.
I just wanted to say thank you for all of the work that you and the people who work with you do, because mental health is really, really important to me, and it's affected my life, and it's affected my school, my community. It's affected SMCPS many times over the past couple years, and anything that we can do to support our students and obviously also our staff and parents and just our SMCPS community through any sort of mental health related issue or crisis they may be facing. If we can do something about it, I think we should, and I'm very happy to see that there are so many resources available. And I actually have looked at all of those websites over the past couple years, and they're really great. They're very catered towards their demographic. So the elementary school one is obviously a little bit more lighthearted and easy to kind of grasp, because obviously you can't throw something super heavy at like a 6-year-old, because that would not be appropriate for them. But the high school one has been really, really helpful. I've definitely directed some people towards those resources in the past. And you talked about the 4 to 9 month wait period that a lot of people are facing when trying to get in with some sort of outpatient service. And that 4 to 9 month wait period could make the difference for a lot of kids. Sometimes that time is too much. That would not be a safe time to wait for those kids. So these resources that SMCPS has, created, developed for those students, I really appreciate the evening counseling one especially. I just want to reiterate how important this is, because I said earlier you can't learn in an unsafe environment, but sometimes that safety comes from yourself. You have to be, safe and secure, in who you are, and that it's okay to not be there, especially in, a time like this where everything is moving, everything is changing, we're still adjusting back to things, and it's okay to not be there, and it's good that there's resources out there to, get students there. So, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you very much.
You have a really important job, no question. I know we've got some great programs, see something, say something. And it kind of, the question I have is bullying, which as I understand it, is a major cause of student repression and depression. Do you seeing any drop at all in the number of reports that we get on bullying? Is that something that maybe we
It's hard to tell at this point in the year, because we did implement the new process of having the availability of the electronic system. So anytime you implement something that's a little easier for folks to report, you're going to see an increase in numbers. That's the whole point of it, is we want people to report anytime there's a concern. Sometimes those concerns actually don't meet the definition of bullying, so that's important to note too, is just because we've gotten those reports, it doesn't actually mean that it actually was bullying. Sometimes it is, and that is where we're able to intervene with those students and try to get a resolution to that. So yeah, we absolutely take it seriously when we get those, and there's an investigation that is done in trying to help support those students in figuring out how to make them feel safe.
Thank you. That's all I have.
You mentioned about the Google. Where do you go on the website to find?
So if you go to the main website, the SMCPS website, you will
Okay.
see a button that says Mental Health Resources right on the main page. If you click that, it takes you to another site, and they will be listed there that you can access them.
Okay, thank you. And then I have one more question. The tier 2, the
Yes.
groups, is that during the school day? Or is that something prior or after school?
So groups are done during the school day. Depending on the type of group, there are, like, our school counselors do push into classrooms, and that is considered a group for some things, for like guidance lessons and things like that. We also have groups that are done during like lunch periods or one lunch and things like that, where kids come together. Those groups are typically, parent consent is required to participate in those, so we do obtain that for those during the school day. But yes, all of that happens during the school day.
Okay, thank you.
I just have 2 comments. Number one, I think that the breadth of information that you have placed out there, whether it be for students or parents, is extremely comprehensive, and I think it's a good support. I mean, if you are a parent and your child is experiencing something, there's that you just want to help them. So, and sometimes it's a struggle to figure out where to go to help, right? And where to get that help. So with your Google sites, you have everything kind of contained, that at least it's a starting point. It might not be the solution, but I'm sure it gives some people some sort of comfort to know that there's something there that they can go and look at and read and contact to get help. Number 2, on Jim's point on bullying, I think all of the work that everyone has done over the past couple years about bullying, I think the students recognize it when bullying is happening to others.
Yeah.
So I think, and not to take it too far, but I think then their students kind of call out the bullies, and I don't know if it stops, but I mean, at least it kind of puts them on notice that, maybe they think that they've done something wrong, or, hey, other people are noticing, and now I'm not in favor with a group of students. So I think that's been positive as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Mary?
I want to thank you for all that you're doing. I remember when I first got on the board years and years ago, I said we need a social worker psychologist in every school. And at that time, we were struggling to get a full-time nurse in every school. So at this point now, we have 12 workers, which is a good start, and a lot of information for students, families, and community members to access to find out about mental health. Mental health, after all, is part of our overall well-being. You can't function well if you have some mental things going on in your head. So I think this is wonderful, and I thank Mr. Wyant again, because he has brought in speakers to talk about different things, about suicide prevention, drug use, making healthy choices. So I've always enjoyed those sessions when I have attended those, and they are open to students such as, and the community, at the one lunch period or after school hours. So it seemed like you two work in partnership together to keep everyone safe. And it's good to know that this training is made available for all employees in the school system, our support staff, everybody, and I think it's wonderful. So everyone will be able to recognize the signs, and if you see something, you say something, because if you say something, you might be able to save a student's life. And I thank you for all that you're doing to help our students and to train our employees and provide the information for the community by going to our website. Thank you.
On the slide that shows the graph of the bullying reports, are those reports that meet the definition? Every one of them meets the definition?
No, ma'am.
Is it possible for you then, for our understanding of how large this problem is it possible for you to break that out in terms of perhaps total, and then,
So what I would like to do for that data, so this is just the reports that people fill out, and the state of Maryland is an MSDE, and it's not our form, it's their form. What we can present to you is our discipline data for every single year, where it is a conduct, it's a code of conduct infraction to bully or harass, and that's the best data to look at, because that means it was actually investigated, there was due process, we waded through what was being said on both sides and what we did about it. So you can know how many times it elicited a referral, which is where they should be, and then what was the response, whether it was low level and simply a conference where you could talk to, all the way up to, you know, a multi-day out-of-school suspension for some repeated things. Bullying is a real challenge in that a great deal of it happens outside of our purview and on electronic devices. And as I tell parents way too frequently, if your child is being bullied on social media, take them off of social media. Take the device away from them, because they cannot control themselves on the device. You know, we come in, we hear tragic stories of people who were deeply tormented in the middle of the night because they were on Instagram, Google Chat, whatever, and people said unkind things. And they shouldn't have the device with them, they shouldn't be using it at night, and more importantly, it's not our job to parent. We address bullying as we see it within the buildings and as it impacts the educational environment. That's really where we are. So I think that bullying data we can certainly bring forward. We can really talk through that. I think that might be the best conversation to be had.
I personally think that would be helpful. So, you know, I look to the rest of the board if that's their pleasure. I would appreciate that. Last question, the slide about the 12 workers serving the 16 schools. You showed that the number of crisis walk-in sessions for 21-22 were 1,645, and that just in Q1 of this year, we're already at 479. Do you have a sense of whether that this ramping up is a function of people understanding that this is a resource that's available to them and availing themselves of it, or is it more leaning toward there are that many more students who are having the sense that they need this help and are thankfully we're able to provide it for them?
So I think it's a combination
Okay.
of the two things. I think awareness is always good. So awareness is always going to enable students to come forward with concerns. At the same time, I think that 4 to 9 month waiting list that I talked about before, it's this, we function as a system. In social work school, we all talk about like systems theory, you know, one part affects the whole, right? You work on one, it impacts the other. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think our community is saturated with high level of need because the needs are higher, but they can only support so much. So I think it's kind of bubbling over and down into the school system, and those needs are higher. So they're kind of getting it from both sides. The student need is higher, the community availability is lower to connect with the need, and I think it's sandwiching, and I think it's causing the explosion.
Thank you. I appreciate the additional information. That's all.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. And lastly, blueprint. With our blueprint team.
Blueprint budget.
Our team.
Budgety, money.
Good morning. We're approaching this in 2 parts here. Ms. McCourt and I will both be presenting information about how the blueprint connects with the FY24 budget. I will be going first to set the context of where we are with the blueprint, and it will essentially give a nod to where it has implications for budget, and then Tammy will take over and talk about how that will in effect then affect our budgeting. So we will start with the blueprint. Okay, so we have been working for the last 14 months with our Blueprint implementation team. I want to give a special thanks to those who have been chairing each of the pillar work groups for all the work with the Blueprint, as well as the 60 people or so who represent staff and stakeholders from across our schools and community who have been working to unpack the Blueprint. Over the last several months, there's been a lot of movement from both the Accountability and Implementation Board and MSDE in developing the plan template, and so for our work. In October, the AIB released the draft comprehensive plan, which basically took all of the elements that are in statute and outlined them by pillar and the tasks that would be required over the next couple of years to accomplish the Blueprint. On November 4th, the draft template was released and put out for feedback. In the middle of November, there was a public hearing and then written feedback that was received, and my understanding there was over 400 pieces of written feedback that was submitted to the AIB for review. They then met on December 1st and approved the full comprehensive plan, the criteria for success, and the template, which is the list of questions essentially that we will have to respond to for our plan. That was released on December 2nd. And so here we have these three documents. So the comprehensive plan, again, which takes all of the statute and puts it into tasks and the shalls, if you will. The guidance document and the criteria for success was what MSDE released, taking all of those tasks and essentially developing a rubric for what a good response and a good action plan would be for each one of them. And then the template that is the 101-page document with 164 questions that essentially we're asked to respond to within 99 pages of how we will address each of these elements. So I will say in that there are opportunities to provide links to artifacts that will allow us for greater detail, but there's quite a bit that we'll be responding to, and essentially what it does is if you can sort of crosswalk those three documents. The first one gives the detail of what the task is, the criteria then explains how it should look, and then you have the corresponding response within the plan. And so we've spent the last week and a half or so digesting all of this information and working with our subgroups. We had a meeting last week. I'm sorry, this is just a further illumination of what the AIB's plan is and its timeline, that essentially we have until March 15th now to take these plans, put them on paper, submit them. They'll spend the spring then giving us feedback to be finalized and full publication in June. So all of the work that we have, by the way, including all the reports that we're working to submit, in addition to the plan, we have been submitting reports for the last year and a half, almost 2 years now.
And so at this point, we're going to do a detailed summary of each one of
Right.
the reports
Yeah.
and a little, all the way down, because obviously as these go up to the AIB or MSDE or wherever they go, I'm sure somebody must be looking at them. We don't know because we don't receive feedback back other than you submit it.
So,
we've submitted all
but
of
this list of reports basically is in addition to the plan that we have to respond to. We're pretty much every month there's a report or two that is due that explains how we are meeting the requirements in the Blueprint. And I'll go back a slide to say that all of those reports, as we submit them, we're also posting on our Blueprint site, so that in addition to them being housed on the General Assembly's library, online library, you can find them, but we've also been hosting them as well so that it's easy for our stakeholders to access. You can see on the right column there, over the next month or so, there's a number of reports that are also due, some of which that we'll be completing before the end of this calendar year. So when we met with each of our groups on December 6th, each of the chairs and their teams walked through how we've so far been working towards the plan requirements, what progress we're making, and then what we still need to do in order to complete the plan. That full video of those presentations, it's about an hour long, is posted on our Blueprint site, which you can access from our main web page. Just click on Maryland Blueprint on the front page, and it'll take you to this site. You can see the video is posted for the public as well. So anybody who wants to watch the full video, I'm going to give a couple of highlights right now. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but just to set the stage for our budget planning, there are some pieces of it that I think are really important for us to look at where we are with them. So I'm going to go through quickly, pillar by pillar, and again, these are highlights and headlines. They're not the full story. If you want the New York Times article, you can open up the video and watch it there. So essentially in Pillar 1, the key activities here are expanding full-day pre-K, which we've been working this year and have done so for our Tier 1 students particularly. And I put a little icon next to those things within the blueprint. You see the little dollar sign with our logo on it. That icon is to represent something that has a budget impact for us. And as we go through these, you're going to start to add up those dollar bills, and you'll realize that there is a greater investment needed, and the question will be where the funds come from. So that'll be Tammy's job to explain that.
Your little icons, current, going forward, or both?
They represent something that was in the blueprint that has a cost. So, for example, in this one, full-day pre-K, we have already started.
Right,
it's a
that's
cost
what I'm
we're
saying.
already seeing.
So this is already like a checkbox complete. We are already.
Oh, no.
Either current or
Well-
future.
Right, okay.
Yeah, either current or future. Okay, so the full day, the pre-K, working with our child care providers. Obviously, we currently have no private providers who meet the standards who are implementing it to this point. So right now, this represents the work that we're doing within St. Mary's County Public Schools. Further in the blueprint here, and these are all elements that we have to respond to in our plan. For example, the full administration of the kindergarten readiness assessment. That data was just released in December for this year, but it is an annual requirement as well, and expanding our family supports for the Judy Centers, and we're proud to say that we have 3 in place, one Carver, Green Holly, and Lexington Park. If we go to Pillar 2, this is your high quality and diverse teachers and leaders. Over the summer, we submitted a diversity report that outlined our entire, all of our data regarding staffing, our needs, and how we're identifying needs within that data for recruitment efforts that continue. The second piece of it is where we cross over with our higher ed partners, that is looking at how they are working to expand their programs. It's not something we necessarily control, but it is something that we have to partner with our higher ed partners within the area to increase their pool of candidates so that we have our future teachers. Developing pathways for paraprofessionals to become teachers. We have a number of programs. We've talked to you about the teacher apprentice program. We have para to teacher pathways that we're implementing to help our current support staff see pathways to become teachers. The Teacher Academy of Maryland and other certification programs for our conditional teachers as well. And then finally, how we work with MSDE to expand the cohort of national board candidates. We currently have about 35 within the district, 25 of whom are teaching within our classrooms, and we have a cohort right now of, I want to say it's about 50 potential candidates in the mix working towards that, and I know that there were just a handful that just received notification that they earned it for this past year's application as well. So we'll have a future report on those. Those are dollar signs next to those because the programs that we need to certify teachers are going to cost funding not only for tuition reimbursement, but also if we implement programs locally, how we support it is going to take an investment. The support for national board candidates, there is a $10,000 salary increase that goes to those teachers who hold national board certification, and so there's that cost in addition to the costs that are required to earn that certification as well. So just each one of these, and there's a nice example of how that cost will break down that Ms. McCourt will go over. Educating the career ladder, the incentives towards working to advance degrees and master's certifications, the salary increase of the 10% by 2024, and the $60,000 starting salary. All of these are work that have to be done in negotiations and work with our association. But as you can see, there are costs, and I would say these are probably larger piles of those dollar signs there, because staff is one of our greatest investments in the system monetarily. So we're on to college and career readiness, the pathways for college and career readiness, how we look at both assessing students, identifying them, and then providing coursework and opportunities for them to meet those. Much of these, there isn't a specific dollar assigned to it, but this part of our operations and our curriculum alignment, program offerings, all of that is in our program of studies. But where it does come down to it is when we look at additional pathways beyond that might connect with our partner at CSM, the dual enrollment costs that are associated with it that are now fully on the school system, as well as the CTE programs working with the Workforce Development Board. So currently we have over 22 programs at the Forest Center and in our home high schools for CTE program certification. What the blueprint does is it moves some of that work over to the Department of Labor and under their auspices and working with the Workforce Development Board, and requires us to provide funding to the Workforce Development Board for that partnership. So again, these are costs that are new within the blueprint. If I go on to resources to support all students, the recommendations of the English Learner Work Group and expanded supports for our ELL students. We have tremendous things in place for our students, but as the population and the needs grow, we are responding to those as well. We look at community schools grant, and we do have a community school within the system over at Carver, and the supports that are provided. Some of that is grant funded, but some of it will also come from local funds to support that. And we just heard the investment that needs to go into supporting our behavioral health supports. And so, as you can see, that is an investment that is there for the school system, and a worthy one, I might add. And then finally, in governance and accountability, we talk about the plan that has to be developed, but also ensuring that the budget matches those priorities within the blueprint, and specifically aligning each one of those budget costs with targeted areas within the blueprint and matching those costs to the school site. So this was a very, very quick overview. I can pause here. I don't know if Dr. Smith, you want to add anything before we turn it over to Tammy, or if any board members have anything to ask at this point.
No, just, I mean, everything in there carries a cost. Everything in there is directing work of an LEA towards a goal set by the Blueprint for Maryland Success, overseen by the Accountability Implementation Board in concert with the Maryland State Department of Education. And as they all gather to tell us how to do our jobs differently and better, they still haven't done some of the basic, the entire blueprint was set up and initiated after the Thornton Commission to make sure that funding was adequate and equitable. How we've gotten from adequate and equitable to the things that are prescribed in this tome of a document, I struggle, because what I need to know right now is how much money the state is going to provide St. Mary's County Public Schools for the 24 school year. That's it. And funding is predicated on, and we'll talk about all those things, known factors as of right now. They know what our enrollment is, what our income tax is, what our they know. All of that is known. So we should know right now how much money we are going to receive next year. Moreover, that then helps us govern how much money we need to ask for locally. So while we're all getting together to come up with a plan for how other people need to do work, the work that was initially and driving the backbone of their work, we're still waiting on. So with that, Ms. McCourt. And thank you, Dr. Marr.
Thank you, Dr. Marr.
And all those with whom you have the pleasure to work every single day.
So I think starting with governance and accountability is a good place as we work into budget development, because not only do I have the blueprint rules and statutes, but we also have GAFR, which is the Governmental Accounting, Auditing, and Financial Reporting Manual, the Blue Book, which is my whole tier of accounting rules I have to follow, in addition to the Financial Reporting Manual for Maryland Public Schools, which complements the GAFR. So within the GAFR, we have specific requirements that state these are the funds that we need to account for. The most common fund that you're all familiar with is the current expense fund, which is also known as the general fund, which includes both our unrestricted funds, which is typically the focus of our budget conversations, and the restricted fund, which holds all of our grants. Within both state statute as well as the MSD reporting manual, there are categories that we need to recognize these operating budgets under. There are 14 categories that are very specifically defined both in the statute and the reporting manual. And the 15th category is food services, which is another area. So within the unrestricted fund, we have, that is the common operating budget. It represents the majority of the school's day-to-day operations. It includes the county appropriations, state appropriations, as well as a little bit of federal funding from the impact aid. But what's different and interesting about the blueprint is that this typically would be provided to us on a monthly basis and be utilized to support the overarching mission of the school system, but was not specific in nature. It's now becoming a little bit more restricted in use. So you'll see revenue sources that we'll be receiving, but they're specifically tied to a particular intent, and we need to delineate that within the budget. We started talking in the development of our FY23 budget about these unrestricted, restricted funds. So we'll be seeing a lot more of that. The restricted funds are typically application-based grants, and then once they are awarded to us, we have to seek reimbursement for any of the expenses, whereas the unrestricted funds are typically provided to us on a every other month basis. So as we talk about these blueprint funds, the state revenues are delineated with it by a per pupil basis within the statute. So we have foundation programs, transportation aid, compensatory education, English learner program, special education, and guaranteed tax-based programs, which had previously existed. They'll be carrying forward. Comparable wage index, post-college career readiness pathways, concentration of poverty, transitional supplemental instruction, publicly funded kindergarten, and career ladder for educators are all the new components of the blueprint. Every one of these now need to be tied to a specific expense. So going back to governance and accountability, there is a lot of accountability with each of these funds. But what's interesting is that even though the statutes delineate exactly what the PPA is on these, there's a wealth equalization factor. So that is not necessarily the dollar amount that the state will be providing to us. There's also a local match, a local share component. So under section 5-234, part of that governance and accountability is now we need to make sure that we're accounting for 75% minimum at the school level for the listed areas of state aid, as well as the matching county appropriations. So what that means is that on our side, I need to make sure that on our books, even though the teachers are at the schools, that now I have to break down their health care and their social security costs to represent that at the school level. We've historically done that for accounting purposes. We've never done it for budgetary purposes. So it's taking us a long time to work on developing this budget. In addition to that 75%, we also have two areas that we need to recognize 100% on the monies at the school level, and that's for pre-kindergarten as well as concentration of poverty. Concentration of poverty has been quite easy this year. We actually recognized it within our restricted fund because we weren't certain whether it was going to be an application-based grant this year or not, and it's 100% going to Carver. blueprint reporting updates. So you saw that long list of all the reports that we've been doing. And one point of clarification, Dr. Smith, we have had a follow-up on one of the reports a year after it was submitted.
Okay, okay. I apologize.
Very helpful.
A year late, yeah.
So within section 5-234, MSDE has a requirement to implement a new financial management system and student data system. They also have a requirement to update the financial reporting manual for the Maryland Public Schools. The last revision was in 2014. These are both statute requirements. They're required to have both of these in place by July 1st. They have begun some work in these areas. They have established stakeholder work groups. St. Mary's County Public Schools is on each of these work groups intentionally because we want to provide feedback at the very beginning. There's a lot of work that needs to be accomplished at MSDE to be able to roll these items out by July 1st. So as we talk about state aid, there is a component that absolutely is required to be provided on the local side. But the amount of state aid money that's coming to us is based on the county's wealth. And the purpose of that is that the state recognizes that there is a disparity amongst the local jurisdictions. And the primary goal is that the state aid programs is going to be reducing that disparity in the revenue amongst all the jurisdictions. Nearly 70% of the state aid is allocated based on local wealth, whereby the less affluent jurisdictions receive relatively more funding. State aid to local jurisdictions significantly offsets the variations in the tax capacity amongst the jurisdictions. I can't emphasize this enough, but the state aid is absolutely based on the wealth of the county. The wealth of the county is represented by a wealth index. That wealth index is calculated on two items: the real estate assessments, as well as the earned income of our residents, which becomes the basis for our taxable income. The combination of both the local tax rates and the wealth are what produce the revenue for the county. The actual tax rates by the county are not taken into consideration for the state aid calculation. So what this means is, as the wealth of the county increases, the state aid for a jurisdiction will decrease. As the wealth of a jurisdiction decreases, the state aid will increase.
And that is independent of the local tax rate.
That's absolutely correct.
So if you have a county that has the third lowest property tax rate and yet has a great deal of property wealth, the state funds less.
Because you have the capacity.
Because you have the capacity to bring in more revenue. And that's really, really important when you talk about equity and adequacy. Whenever I look at per pupil expenditures across the state, I don't look at the state amount or the local amount or the federal amount. I look at the total amount. How much is that county spending per child, regardless of where the revenue might come from, local, state, or federal. That's a really appropriate way to look at the resources that are available for children. If you just look at one element of that formula, you're never going to see the full picture.
And the formula is incredibly complex. So if you look at all of the jurisdictions, the average state aid per pupil is $7,934. St. Mary's is receiving under that amount at $7,274. However, Baltimore City is receiving almost double that amount of $15,207. And to put that in light with regard to the National Board certification amount that Dr. Mark referenced of $10,000, we are not getting $10,000 from the state. we have an obligation to pay $10,000 for a national board certified teacher that meet the eligibility requirements. However, we're only getting approximately 50% of that $10,000 from the state. The other 50% needs to come from the county government within our maintenance of effort calculations and PPA calculations. So now it's important to talk about maintenance of effort. So we receive PPA, per pupil allocation formula, but on top of that, there is a maintenance of effort formula. And what the new law says, it's the greater of. So maintenance of effort, the concept behind that is for whatever dollar you're receiving today for a student is the dollar that they're required to provide you next year for a student. What it doesn't take into consideration are any inflationary increases, any blueprint mandates, any other legislated mandates. And excluded from that calculation can be one-time, non-recurring costs. So a basic illustration, these are not SMCPS numbers, but a basic illustration is that if you receive $100 million in the current year, and we had 20,000 students as of last fiscal year, the allocation per student in the current fiscal year becomes our basis of $5,000 for next year's budget. So that $5,000 per student gets multiplied by our new enrollment, and let's assume there was no change in our enrollment, so we maintained 20,000 students. Therefore, next year's dollar amount for maintenance of effort calculation purposes for the funding required to be provided to us by the local is the same dollar amount, $100 million. Now let's assume that our student population increases. So using the same concept, we have $100 million in the current fiscal year. We take our $5,000 per student allocation. We assume we have 200 more students for next fiscal year. I'm sorry, for as of this past September 30th count. That means that our maintenance of effort has increased. Therefore, the county government has an obligation to provide us $1 million more than they currently are. If it decreases by 200 students, then they would have an obligation of only $99 million. They can immediately slash our budget by $1 million. Once again, this takes into consideration no inflationary increases, no increases that we're recognizing for fuel or health insurance, etc. But we do have the blueprint requirements, irregardless. So shifting a little, the foundation funding per pupil is only one of those components that I listed, right? It was the top one. That is the largest component on a per pupil basis. That is increasing by 4% for the state calculated statute amount to $8,642. Also embedded in that is $62 to support the career counseling program for middle and high school students. This amount goes into effect for FY24, and we are required to provide, for us, that's been calculated to be about $1.1 million to the workforce development. And the basis of the calculation is all students, not just those that will be reaping the benefits. So our entire student enrollment entire student enrollment body. So about $1 million of that foundation money in next year's budget will be allocated for workforce development.
Can I ask a question on that? So we hand over the money. Is the Workforce Development Board required to then submit anything about how they are going to use that money, and who is it reported to?
We are to collaboratively work with the Workforce Development Board, whatever it might be for your local county. For us, it's a tri-county, and enter into a memorandum of understanding about how all of this should be done. So embedded in the blueprint is this requirement of local school systems entering into memorandums of understanding with the Workforce Development Board, memorandums of understanding for our private providers of pre-K programming, memorandums of understanding with institutes of higher education. All of these things that tendril out of the public school and increase the scope of what we are expected to do. And at the end of it, the funding formula baked into the blueprint, which they haven't really shown us. I mean, they've shown us, and then we're like, well, that's not right. And then they went back and they said, we'll work on it some more. Doesn't seem to, it doesn't seem to work. So even of this 4% that we might see in foundation funding formula, immediately we have to take $1 million out because it's passed through. We've got to hand it at 1.1. It's got to go to the Workforce Development Board. On one hand, somebody's saying, we're giving you all this money. On the other hand, we're saying, this is exactly how you have to spend that money. And some of the other things that are in there, we're going to have to take out of our existing monies. For example, the National Board Certification, half of that money came from local coffers, and there wasn't a requirement of the local coffers to increase the base funding above maintenance of effort. And maintenance of effort, which everybody seems to purport as some magical thing, is absolutely and explicitly flat funding, and is the greatest flaw of the Thornton Commission when it was originally put in, because it never required local funding to actually match whatever the state was requiring. It was always predicated on flat funding education, and it has strangled education across several counties in the state of Maryland.
But my point is, so we're going to hand over $1 million to the Tri-County Council or whatever for the local development
Each
board.
year, for the next 3 years.
For the next 3 years.
Yes.
Okay. So who is evaluating, and I understand we're going to develop this memorandum of understanding, but my, I guess, expectation would be if I'm giving them $1 million, they're going to do the work, right?
I guess
So who is going to evaluate their program within the blueprint to make sure that they are using that money, A, the way it should be used, and B, that it is actually for the betterment of the students?
That is a great question that I would refer back to the AIB and ask them how they plan to hold
Because
accountable.
if not, I'm just
Right.
funding another agency, right?
Right.
I mean, what are they going to do?
Well, the AIB, I still need to know how they're going to hold accountable institutes of higher education, how they're
Right.
going to hold accountable the work boards, and how they're going to hold accountable pre-K providers who don't provide us,
Right.
So,
Okay.
this is really where we are, and this is why we wanted to bring this forth first.
Okay. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't expect an answer because I don't think there is one.
There isn't one.
Yeah.
No.
But I think it's important for the people in the community to understand that, that what's being, thrown about the blueprint for Maryland's future is, to borrow now Delegate Todd Morgan's phrase, smoke and mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, given if you want somebody to do something and you say you're going to give them the money to do it, then just simply give them the money to do it. And it's very simple to calculate. For teacher salary alone, if you want a 10% increase in salary scale for every single LEA across the entire state of Maryland, all you had to do in 2021 is take a look at everybody's salary scale, figure out exactly how much they were spending, and then multiply it by 10% and provide that to every single LEA. If you want to get every single starting salary to $60,000, what you have to do is take the lowest salary, let's say it's in Garrett County, because it's in Garrett County, and they need about $13,000 to catch up. So we know exactly how much each one of these is going to have to catch up and actually give them the money to be able to do it. So we know that in St. Mary's County, we are very proud of the fact that we're close to $50,000 as a starting salary, which doesn't sound like much, but when we started this back then, it was 46%, and we have gone up almost 10% by then. So we're proud of the work that we've been able to accomplish within the confines that we have. We have to get another almost 21% over the next 4 years. So we can calculate exactly how much that costs. If we give a 20% increase to all employees, and 1% equates to $1.3 million, so it's going to be about $26 million. Great. MSDE, AIB, give us $13 million specifically for this and nothing else, and require the local county commissioners to require them to give us $13 million as well. That's straightforward and simple. It was never presented like that, and I feel our county commissioners. Throughout this entire process, they kept on saying, "How much is this going to cost us? How much is this going to cost us? How much is this going to cost us?" And the AIB continued, and DLL, they continued to put out nothing. You're going to be able to do maintenance of effort for the next 10 years, and this will be fully funded. And maintenance of effort says flat funding. So nobody ever said, time out, that there's no way that that's true. There's no way that that can work. You can't increase teachers' salaries by realistically 30% over 8 years and incur no local costs. And yet, baked into the formulas and baked into the thing and told to everybody, and it's up on the Maryland General Assembly when they did a fiscal note, they showed that St. Mary's County, for additional funding they're going to have to kick in for the next 10 years, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, you're going to be fine with maintenance of effort.
And I will take exception to the comment of nobody told them, because I said it over and over again to Dr. Kerwin. How are you going to do this for these reasons? And he said, simple. We're going to improve teacher education, so they're going to be wonderful classroom managers. And so over the years, you're going to be able to decrease the number of teachers you have. Their class sizes will grow, and you won't need as many staff, and you can just redistribute those monies. And I pointed out that the state does not allow us to build classrooms that will fit 35 or 40 kids, and I asked him point blank, are we going to double bunk them? How do you see us fitting that many kids in a classroom? And he just said, well, that's the way it's going to be. And then he changed his tune to get this all done, but that's what he said for 18 months before all of this. So trust me, I was very direct with him.
Yeah, I'm just saying the commissioners, for their part, when they went through the entire process and they go to they go to all and they see what their portion was to be, they were all told nothing. You do not have to do anything more than maintenance of effort. You're good to go. You're not going to have to spend any more money on public education. And they're not required by law to do so. The maintenance of effort calculation hasn't changed, and when we ran through the blueprint numbers, it actually, they could, in theory, cut our funding. Not only not give us flat funding, but give us actually less. Mm-hmm. So that's where we are.
So when we were looking at some of the budget requirements of the blueprint, every 1% equals $1.3 million for our ESMIC and ESMIC ESP. We already have in place an administrator's agreement that calls for a step in 2%, and that's $800,000 impact for next year's budget. Healthcare, we know that we're going to have incremental cost increase. Transportation, we're certainly recognizing the escalating fuel costs, currently at $5.54. I looked back a year and a half at the beginning of last school year. This has been a 74% increase. We absolutely need to increase our bus contractors and the driver and aid wage. Dual enrollment, we need to provide for, under the blueprint, tuition coverage. The LEA cost for that is $500,000. We've already talked about the workforce development of $1.1 million. We need to do a textbook adoption next year for secondary math. That's $2 million. Facility maintenance. You are constantly hearing about the increases in that area. The year-over-year CPI increase is 6.7%, but we're recognizing upwards of 19-20% increases on our facility costs. And of course, we've got the minimum wage increase from $13.25 to $14 next year. So the governor will be presenting his budget the third Wednesday in January. But as we're waiting for the governor to present his budget, we're constantly looking at other economic outlooks. So for example, we look at the Maryland Bureau for Revenue Estimates. Their latest report was issued in September. They're meeting again tomorrow afternoon. But as of September, they were looking at 5.8% increase in their income tax revenues for next year. We also look to our county government and assess their income tax revenues and where they have been and where we project that they may be. And historically, our county has come in a little bit higher than the state. So we'll continue to monitor what's coming from the state, what's coming locally. We will not be getting, do not expect to be getting any information from MSDE as to what we expect to receive in St. Mary's County for state aid until after the governor's budget has been published. The state did indeed publish a calculator out there for our use, for us to be able to provide our own projections. There were some amendments that needed to be made to that calculator to allow it to be a little bit more reliable. So at this time, we're scheduled to meet right after the holidays on January 4th, as Dr. Smith stated earlier, and we'll continue with budget work sessions through the month of January, as well as a public hearing, so that we can hand your budget over to the county commissioners for their consideration in their budget development by February 1st. Are there any questions?
The only thing I would like to add is that, and in particular, in all of the uncertainty and chaos and all of the things that have happened over the last 2 years, the county commissioners down here through the budget process, and last year in particular, funded us $6.8 or $6.9 million over their allocation from the previous year, that allowed us to meet all of our negotiated agreements, to cover all of our costs, and they absolutely were not required by any mandate from MSDE, AIB, what have you, to do so. It is through their commitment to the school system, to our students, and to all the people who work with our students that we were able to have the budget that we have. There are all of these expenses, very large expenses, built into the blueprint, and as far as we can tell, the state funding will never measure up to the needed funds, which means we are going to have to turn again to our closest partners to get this work accomplished. And I will tell you, we're not going to do it quietly. Because I don't think that the commissioner groups have been placed in a fair position in that they have not been told up front and throughout what any of this would cost. We're not even going to touch the career ladders, which again are predicated on the best teachers teach the least amount. Nor special ed, which special ed gets so good it doesn't need to be there anymore. That's also baked into those numbers.
Exactly.
I mean, right now we're just trying to tackle the smaller elements. We still haven't resolved all the elements relative to national board certification and all of that. So it's going to require a great deal of effort on all of us. It's going to require a great deal of patience for the people doing the work. Because we've got all these disparate systems all at the same time, everybody asking for all of these different things as we're trying to get all of this work done, as we're trying to communicate the needs of the system and this budget. In January, we are also going to be completing the blueprint implementation plan, which is on an exceptionally compressed schedule. They release a document and then make us turn around and submit the whole thing. So we're going to be hopefully in the month of February, after we present our budget, the month of February will be blueprint, where we'll basically be presenting the blueprint implementation plan. But everything in that plan costs money. And we get pushed around this large number of $3.6 billion investment in education over the next 10 years. Again, if you look at how much the state spends on education and push that over 10 years, it's only a 4%, 3 to 4% increase overall in funding year over year. And when the CPI is anywhere from 6 to 8%, we're not even keeping pace with where we are. So, this is not the way you want to end the meeting right before winter break, because it's not ho-ho happy. But I will tell you what makes me ho-ho happy is that we have great people around all of this work, and we agree with pretty much everything that's in the blueprint. And if somebody just gives us the funds to be able to do it, we will gladly put ourselves to that work. We think that the earlier we can work with kids and the more robustly we can offer supports and the plethora of pathways that we can show them post-secondarily will be the greatest thing in the world. we agree. And should teachers make a professional, livable salary? Absolutely. Should everyone else who's in a system do the same? Yes, they should, although the blueprint doesn't recognize anyone other than a classroom teacher. It's all going to be very good work. I can't wait for 2023 to start, because it's going to require the very best versions of ourselves, and I'm ready to bring it. And I know that I'm working with people who are also ready to bring that best version of themselves.
All right, anyone have any other questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
So my understanding is once we submit the implementation plan to the AIB, which we've already said has a certain lag time in reviewing the reports that we offer up, that they will withhold 25% of our funding until they determine that we are implementing everything according to their plan, our plan.
They have the authority to withhold the funding that is allocated tagged to blueprint activities.
Okay.
So that wouldn't be all of funding, but it would be the additional funding that is tied to blueprint is what they have the ability. But I would think that would be at least a year out, because you need to see the results of the plan being implemented.
Okay.
So we have between March and May is when they're going to review the plans and provide feedback, so we can make adjustments to the plan. But then the results would come
A year later.
At least a year later, right?
I struggle to understand how we're supposed to implement a budget that they withhold funds from without any understanding that those funds will be released. We have to submit a balanced budget. That's not going to be balanced, so just saying. Thank you.
So my question is, doesn't that, when the school board, the school received that extra money from the county, that's 6.8 million, isn't that factored in, and that becomes the new county's maintenance of effort amount?
Yes, it does, except
Okay.
we are in a very strange time where they're fluctuating with enrollments.
Okay.
So the county's maintenance of effort number will increase, I believe, from what we'll start with when we get back together in January is using the calculations that are provided to us. We'll let you know exactly what the determined PPA was last year at the county level based on our current enrollment, multiply that out, and that is what the county by law has to provide to us for maintenance of effort. We will also have a comparative number that, using the formulas built into the blueprint, how that number, that's also a number, and then ultimately they're responsible for one of the two larger. The largest with PPA is it lags. So while we might predict what our enrollment will be next year, our funding is predicated on what our enrollment is this year. So everything, and that's the conversation we have with commissioners every single year. Is they're like, well, if we give you this money recurring, then we are increasing the maintenance of effort the next year. And once you give $1, you have to continue to give $1. And it's like, well, yes, that's true, but once we pay a person an amount of money, we have to continue to pay that person an amount of money. Mm-hmm. So it will be. It's going to be. It really will be an opportunity for us to do some deep learning.
Okay. Anyone else?
Looking forward to it.
Jim? Mary?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so as Tammy mentioned, work session will be held on Wednesday, January 4th at 9 o'clock here. Then we will have a regular board meeting on Thursday, the 12th, not Wednesday, Thursday, the 12th.
Thursday, pardon me.
Thursday. 8 o'clock for executive session, and then the open meeting will begin at 9. With that, we are adjourned.